Hello and welcome to the EDH Academy podcast. My name is Jay, and I thank you for joining me for episode 5 of a bi-weekly podcast regarding all topics within the Commander EDH format, whether we're talking about upcoming sets and what they're going to mean for the format as far as the cards go, any rule changes that are going to change how we play the game and how we build our decks, but also some topics like how to financially keep up in the Commander format, deal with some unique social situations at your LGS or within your playgroup, and other topics like that. For today's podcast, we are going to be talking about the Commander 2018 product. I was super excited coming into the preview season. It only lasted a week this time, but we're getting 4 new decks. I'm going to be talking about each of the decks as far as the 3 legendary creatures that are in the colors for the deck, what they do, what the deck strategy wants to do, a few of the notable cards that they printed for the decks, and what I think about them as far as the decks themselves. And so we're going to start off in the order that Wizards of the Coast revealed the decks. So we're going to start with the blue and red artifacts matter decks known as Exquisite Invention. So the deck has a heavy artifact theme, which has kind of been really pushing the artifacts matters theme a little bit these last couple of years, but I think this year they did it just a little bit differently enough to make things interesting. So the Planeswalker commander for this deck is Saheeli the Gifted. She costs 2 blue-red for a 4 starting loyalty planeswalker. She has 2 +1 abilities. The first one is to create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token, so you get a 1/1 colorless creature for free. It's an artifact, so it interacts with the sacrificing artifacts or whatever it may be, but the artifacts matter aspect of it is where she's interacting. Her other +1 ability, and this is one that's been getting a lot of attention recently, or when she was revealed, I should say, is the next spell you cast this turn costs 1 colorless mana less to cast for each artifact you control as you cast it. So being that this is a very artifact-heavy deck, and the cost reductions in colorless form, people have been talking about what happens if you're going to be running, these high colorless costing cards like the Eldrazi or cards like Darksteel Forge. She is going to enable you to cast them for a really low cost, if not for free, depending on when she comes out. Her -7 ability is, for each artifact you control, create a token that's a copy of it. Those tokens gain haste, exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a way for you to have a impressive board state or a semi-impressive board state. You use her -7 loyalty. Now you're doubling up in the artifacts you have, the creatures among them gain haste, and now that's a way for you to be able to finish the game or put yourself ahead to where you eliminate a player and you can kind of keep going from there and have one player gone and kind of go from there. So as far as this Planeswalker, it's not a bad one. I mean, the -7 ability or the ultimate ability doesn't give you an emblem, which is okay. Not every Planeswalker has to give you an emblem. I feel she's appropriately costed. I feel that having the ability to either make yourself a servo or discount your next spell without losing loyalty is a huge thing in this Planeswalker's favor, because she's already starting off with 4, and it's not exactly the most aggressive one of the decks. So being able to not set yourself back, especially when you're in more of a mid-range color in a mid-range deck, I feel it's properly made. The art's fantastic, and I say Saheeli the Gifted's a winner. So that's merely the Planeswalker that's going to be on the cover of the deck box. So when you go to your Walmart or your local game store, Saheeli the Gifted is going to be the one in the front. But as they usually do, Wizards of the Coast also printed 2 additional legendary creatures within that color identity to give you a little bit of variety, a little bit of room to be able to brew the deck and kind of give yourself something a little bit different to work with other than just the Saheeli the Gifted. So the first one we're going to be talking about for the blue-red artifacts deck is Brutaclad Telcore Engineer. One thing about Brutaclad is that he actually shows up in a single line or a single set of flavor text from one artifact creature from, I believe it was the Scars of Mirrodin block set, or Scars of Mirrodin block, I should say. his ability is quite flavorful to the fact that he shows up on this particular card. So he is a legendary artifact creature artificer for 4 blue-red for a 4/4. For blue-red, a 6-mana 4/4 is pretty good. Not the best, but let's get to the effects and we're going to see why it's costed the way it is. So, Brutaclad Telcar Engineer gives all creature tokens you control haste, or creature tools you control have haste, is the first line of text. So already we're seeing this artifact token strategy that hasn't really been embraced yet. There are quite a few cards, especially within Kaladesh and a couple within the Mirrodin block sets, that create tokens. But Brutaclad does something a little bit different, which pushes it into a territory where artifact tokens are going to matter, and he's going to really make them tough. His second effect. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. So the odd 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token, the odd typing and coloring, is because Brutaclad shows up in the flavor text of a 2/1 blue creature who happens to be a mirror artifact creature. So a little bit of flavor for you Vorthos people out there. What makes him so interesting is that there are several ways for you to get a artifact creature token that is not like a 1/1 Servo or a 1/1 Thopter. We have Sihili's Artistry, we have Mimic Bat. We just have several different ways to be able to create a artifact token of a creature that we want to copy. So being able to first make the artifact creature token in a particular way, and then having all of the tokens that we have made through either a Mirror Battlesphere, a Thopter Engineer, whatever it might be, turning all of these 1/1 creatures into something big and oppressive is a way to kind of give a rather Spellslinger style deck something to work with as an offensive strategy. So Brutaclad is a huge win for me. The last blue-red commander that they made for this set that's new is actually a callback to Urza and the Urza Saga block. We get Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice. Tawnos was Urza's apprentice, which contrasted to Ashnod, who was the apprentice to Urza's brother. So Tawnos is an interesting legendary creature because we've only seen him in that his name's been attached to several different artifacts throughout the game, as well as the fact that Tawnos was only ever really a Vanguard, which is a card type that is from a long outdated playstyle and game format that we're not going to be getting into in this podcast because it has nothing to do with Commander. So Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice, is easily the cheapest one in that he only costs for a blue and a red for a 1/3 human artificer, which a 2-mana 1/3 in blue-red is not bad at all. He has haste on his own. Then for blue-red, tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an artifact source. You may choose new targets for that copy. So if we have an artifact that is making mana, if we have an artifact that's creating a token, we're able to copy that ability. If you're familiar with cards like Panamonican, Illusionist Bracers, and cards like that, Urza's Apprentice does that, but specifically for things that artifacts do. So offhand, if we were to make mana, do combat damage, draw an extra card like that for Staff of Nim, create tokens like that of Mirror Battlesphere, do damage or draw cards like that in Combustible Gearhulk, we're able to actually copy that ability for blue-red and then tapping Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice. I feel that Tawnos may not necessarily be, in my opinion, a commander material type of legendary creature, but I can definitely see him being used in a deck in the 99. I feel that to make a deck that really abuses Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice's ability, you're going to be running a lot of cards to that are activating and triggered. And yes, there are artifacts out there that do that. I just feel that your deck would be more effective if you built it to where it was a blue-red artifact deck that Tawnos is used to help promote the synergies of the deck by copying the abilities versus him being the center of the deck and you having to run abilities that activate or trigger just to make Tawnos worthwhile. But deck brewers out there, have fun and go for it. Find those intricacies and ways to abuse Tawnos to prove me wrong. I enjoy being proven wrong for my initial predictions because that's what the format's all about. It's finding these neat interactions and finding ways to make legendary creatures that we may not ordinarily be able to, find synergies for and finding combos that are ultimately busted. To talk about a few cards that are being printed in Exquisite Invention that are going to be either new to the colors or cards that are going to be really interesting for gameplay. To start us off, we have Saheeli's Directive. Saheeli's Directive costs red, red, red X and has Improvise. So what Improvise allows you to do is that once you've already done using your mana abilities of artifacts and lands, it allows you to tap artifacts you control to add one colorless mana for that spell. So the card reads, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of artifact cards with converted mana cost, X or less, from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed that way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. So for those familiar with the green spell Genesis Wave does the exact same thing but for creatures. Saheeli's Directive does it for artifacts, and this is a very unique way of getting the high costing artifacts or just multiple artifacts onto the battlefield, and it plays into Red's kind of randomness in a sense, in that you're just pulling it off the top. It doesn't exile the cards, which is more in Red's color pie, but just having a card like Saheeli's Directive to get a bunch of artifacts out is super good, especially because we have the artifact lands in Great Furnace and Seat of the Sided, so it actually gives you the potential to ramp as well. A card that Red has been wanting for so long and is finally getting in this deck is called Enchanter's Bane. Enchanter's Bane is an enchantment costing 1 and a red that reads, at the beginning of your end step, target enchantment deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to its controller unless that player sacrifices it. So this is Red's way of being able to deal with pesky enchantments by forcing its controller to choose between taking damage or sacrificing the enchantment. So especially with those enchantments that cost 4, 5, 6 mana that do very powerful things because of their cost, it forces their controllers to debate, well, do I really want to keep this enchantment out, or has it done me enough good I gotta get rid of it because the life off is going to be too great. So Red players rejoice, we have a way of getting rid of enchantments, in your color specifically. A card that is introducing this concept of what some are calling Commander Storm, it's a card called Fury Storm, costing 2 red red. The first line of text reads, when you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this is the red version of a cycle of cards that deal specifically with counting the number of times your commander has been cast. And that is a brilliant new idea that hasn't been previously explored before, and Wizards of the Coast has just knocked it out of the park with this idea, and we're going to talk about every single card of that cycle in this episode. So Fury Storm copies target instant or sorcery spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So now we have a interesting thing where blue-red can be a rather spell-slingy deck depending on your commander. So whether you're running Niv Mizzet, or you're running Melik, is it Paragon, or Mivix of the Ismagus, those decks that really want to be doing a lot of instant and sorcery spell casting, Fury Storm now gives you a benefit for having played your commander as often as you have and trying to keep it onto the battlefield. So I really like this card. I'm actually going to be ordering this card to be ran in a deck that utilizes a lot of extra turn spells. because being able to not only copy the extra turn spells from my commander or from effects like Hive Intelligence and Primal Wellspring, but getting those off of Fury Storm would just be absolutely insane. Also in this deck, we are getting the blue part of the cycle when it comes to the Commander's Storm idea, and it's called Echo Storm. So again, it has the line when you cast a spell, copy for each time you cast your commander from the command zone, you may choose new targets, but Echo Storm allows you to create a token that's a copy of target artifact. This could lend into the strategy of Brutaclad, where if we make a copy of an artifact creature that creates tokens, we can, create more of those tokens, but also it's now a artifact token that we could turn all of our other